Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Today, we are meeting with playwright Sean Grennan, who has written the upcoming musical that we are doing, Another Night Before Christmas, which opens November 18th and runs through December 11th. So, Sean,
Mhm.
talking to you a little bit, I'd love to talk a little bit more about how you became a playwright and kind of talking to our patrons and just getting to know you a little bit.
Oh, sure. Well, as I was mentioning earlier, I started my career as an actor, but I was an English major in school, and I always had an interest in literature and the written word and all of that. But I started out my career as an actor in Chicago, and I did that exclusively for, say, the first 20, 25 years of my career. But I always had an interest in these other things. So if there was a benefit to host or something, I would write myself some material and host the benefit, and I would work with other people. And I found myself b- getting too busy. Like when I would write a card to somebody, I would really work on it too hard. So obviously there was something that was trying to claw its way out of me.
Yeah.
And then a strange opportunity came my way. My wife and I were uh, offered an opportunity to work on a musical, to write a musical with the Marriott Theater in Chicago. They had a writer that fell out. They had a falling out with the person, and they were in production, or not in production, but they were had started the process with him, and they were excited about the idea, and they didn't have anybody, and they were like tearing out their hair. I heard about this at a party, and Kathy and I didn't really have the confidence to do it by myself, but Kathy and I did together. So
Mhm.
we asked for them for a pitch meeting, and we pitched them an idea for a show based on the title that they were interested in. We sort of wrote backwards. We wrote into the title, and they said, "But you've never written anything before." And I said, "Well, no one ever has till they have." So, but they laughed their heads off at the pitch we did, and we wrote a show for them. And it was Kathy. She and I wrote two things together. It wasn't what she liked doing. She was quite a wonderful actress and won awards and all that sort of thing. And I was the actor at the time. But remember, we were driving somewhere, and she asked me, we're couples just talking trash about life and the future, and she said, "If you could have a show on Broadway, would you rather be the star of the show or have written the show?" And I said, "I'd rather have written the show." She said, "Well, I think that's all you need to know."
Interesting.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so from then on, I started teasing, and I kept acting, and I as I said, my last time I was on stage was in 14, but I sort of tapered out and tapered over to writing, and I'm happier here. I think I'm in the right chair at long last, so it's good.
That's cool. Yeah, no, that's really awesome. That yeah, it's such a fun question too of like, yeah, and sometimes you have to kind of have those life questions that help you kind of figure out like what you want. You're like, oh,
Right.
yeah, 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 that is kind of what I want to do.
That's where I should have been all along. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So as we kind of transition a little bit, I'd love to hear your own interpretation of the synopsis, if you will, of this musical that you have written, of Another Night Before Christmas. I'd love to hear one, if you would just kind of tell us your own little synopsis of it, as well as kind of how this came to be, what your inspiration was, and why you ended up writing it.
Oh, well, the synopsis of the show, just the thumbnail. I don't want to give anything away.
Mhm.
But the is that Carol, a young woman who's she's a good person. I think she's a social worker, and she cares about people, and but she's kind of a loner, and she's kind of disconnected. And one night coming home, right around Christmas, she encounters a man outside who looks like a homeless person and is muttering to himself. And she is coming from like an office thing, and she gives him, you can walk out with your little food bag from those things, and she gives that food to him, and he takes it, and he's grateful and everything, and but he doesn't seem to be he seems to be all right, not going to die or anything, just out there. So she goes on her way, and he's grateful, and he ends up sort of following her, and they spend an evening together. He the little conceit there's a conceit in theater called the locked room premise, where you only have one set for the whole show. They can't go anywhere else. They can't go to other locations. I actually cheat that a little bit in the show, but I accomplished that by having her have an alarm system that he actually accidentally trips that locks down the room. So they're stuck together for the evening. And they go back and forth, and he's an interesting, funny guy, and he talks to her about Christmas and what Christmas is about. And her family wasn't really into Christmas at all, but I think we get in the course of the evening that, and this is a common problem. I wrote the show several years ago, but I think it's a bigger problem even now, is that there's a lot of disconnection in the world. We are not feeling I mean, we're having, don't get too dark here, but there's a lot of despair in our country right now.
Yeah.
And, I think it has a lot to do with lack of human connection. Uh, uh, Social media has its wonderful purposes, but it also can keep you at arm's length. And we really need to not do that with each other. So I think she's experiencing that disconnection, and it's manifesting right around Christmas. And then this guy shows up, and he claims to be someone pretty significant at Christmas time. And she's like, yeah, you're a crazy person. And that's sort of the engine of the evening.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I think that's a fairly accurate summary without, obviously giving away the fun little twists and stuff that you have. So.
Yeah. But it also, I was interested, as they say, in the locked room thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was interested in trying to do a two-hander. They're difficult because
Mm-hmm.
you have, I mean, just two actors to play with all night. You got to watch these people. So the dialogue and it has to be interesting enough that the audience doesn't go, what time is we out of here? And plot has to keep moving forward, even though you're not going to do a lot of action in just one room, physical action. But it's sort of a mystery. It's sort of a peeling away layers mystery as the evening goes on. So I was interested in doing that as a device, but also, practically some theaters want a small cast show, and professional theaters in particular want that because they have to pay fewer people. But I don't think it's the ugly stepchild or anything. I think it's just a different form of theater.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Quick question so was this like your first two-hander like show that you had written, or had you written anything before that had just two people?
No, I never written anything before this. The smallest I've ever written is 4 people.
Mhm.
Um, uh, and I don't. It's not that I'm in love with the form. It's a good form. It works really well as long as you can keep it all dancing and keep it interesting.
Yeah.
That's why I try. That's why I try to make it funny occasionally. And you also, with a musical, they break in the song from time to time, and that's that helps keep people entertained. So so.
Yeah.
It's fun. Yeah.
So yeah, was there any additional inspiration or anything that came about? Obviously, you said, that idea of kind of the locked sets, of keeping them trapped in this little room was kind of an inspiration, as well as how can you make a two-hander, and keep it interesting and whatnot. But was there any reason why it specifically was around Christmas or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I love Christmas. I think a lot of people do, and I think it's. I think I happen. I'm sorry, getting a little dark here, but things like sadness and suicide go up around Christmas time because people feel disconnected.
Yeah.
And I had just read something about that, and so I was looking to write a show that solves that for the Carol character, that forces her. She's really good at verbally dancing and keeping you at arm's length, but she can't keep that up all night long, and she kind of breaks down. And this guy uses every trick in the book to get to her, including a kind of a magical one at the end, that finally convinces her of the worthwhile part of this time of year, and reaching out to people and caring about each other. So I think I was interested in that. I sometimes feel disconnected. My family's back in the Chicago area, and I live in Pennsylvania now after 23 years in New York. So I try to reach out and try to connect with people. I think it's healthy. It's one of the reasons that, like, in prison, solitary confinement is a punishment because it's really bad for you. So it's good to stay in touch with people. It's good to stay connected.
Yeah, no, and I love that, right? Is that I think a lot of why, I'll go out on a limb here and say I would say a large amount of reason why a lot of people do theater in general is for that humanity, right? Is to connect with people, right? Like that's why we're storytellers, is that whether you're on the stage or behind the scenes, is that we want to connect with humans, and we want to say like, hey, your experiences are not invalid, you are not invalid as a person, is that we want to laugh, we want to cry, we want to love with one another. And yeah, and I think this show specific, it very, I think you hit it on the head, like the needing that humanity and that touch. And there's this little thing called the pandemic that we've all kind of experienced in the last couple of years. I think
Right.
we've all experienced that firsthand. And so kind of whatever, having this that we can kind of relate to, and relating to Carol. And I think the festivities around Christmas time and whatnot, people do tend to be a little bit more jolly and cheerful with one another, and like, oh hey, merry tiding, merry, or
Bad tidings. You're right.
yes,
Right.
yes, yeah, I was like, I'm combining the two here.
Right.
But yeah, is that it's that sometimes we can get kind of caught up in our own lives and whatnot, and so just kind of reminding ourselves like, hey, like, love one another and be with each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah. It's a good reminder. And I was going to say, for me as a writer, the greatest review I get is if an audience member sees themselves on that stage. They
Mhm.
said, "My family's like that. We're like, I do things like that." It's connection, and it's the storytelling thing you're talking about. If we can put something kind of familiar and authentic up there,
Mhm.
uh, I sometimes say that the other careers in the world are so important. Doctors, lawyers, mechanics, plumbers. They're very important careers, and we're sort of what's in a soft career. Those careers, they absolutely make like life possible. Our career, storytelling generally, it makes it worth living.
Mhm.
It explains why I live,
Yeah.
and I think we need all of it. So anyway, when it's going really well, other times, it says, why live. The other times it's just fun. It's just a lot of fun, and we need fun too. Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, kind of the last thing that I for sure wanted to touch on was, so this is a musical.
Mhm.
Now, this is exciting because I've never talked to a playwright that's also written a musical and whatnot. So I was just curious what that kind of writing process was in general, both for you and just across the board of writing both a musical, and you collaborated with another person on this as well.
Yeah.
Of,
Yeah.
yeah, what that was like.
Well, I've written 5 musicals, and I'll say right off the bat, they're harder than straight shows. When you're just writing a play, it's just me and the computer. I don't, I can just follow my vision, go everywhere. I try when I'm working with a composer or whatever. I try to check in all the time and say, I'm thinking about this for the plot, thinking about this for the plot. But there's a saying in the business that musicals are miracles because they're hard to do, they're hard to get right. Dramaturgically, they're a little different than plays.
Yeah.
Um, you have to have a really good feeling for uh, where the character needs to sing. And the rule of thumb for that is, and I'm sure you've heard this, is uh, when the emotions are so high they can no longer keep speaking, then they start to sing.
Yeah.
Whether the emotions are hilarity or sadness or I love you so much or whatever those things are, they're then they have to break into song. That's the rule. So, but I happen to find while I was living in New York, I got in a writers group for a while, and I met a young woman, Leah Okamoto, who's now a lifelong friend. She was a composer, and she was looking for a book writer lyricist, and I was like, let's try, let's work on some things. So we had a few art dates, not dates. I'm married, I'm very happy, so is she, but we had some art dates where I'd throw her like a scene and say, I think the song is here. What do you think? And she said, "Yeah, well, give me some lyrics." And I would throw her lyrics, and she'd say, this part is working good. This part I don't get." So we worked that way, and we would chart everything out. And we liked each other, so that helps a lot when you're in the trenches and you're having disagreements or whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, but she was very excited and happy to do this stuff, and very talented. I like her work a lot, and I wish I was still working with her. She's sort of left this and is doing some other incredibly wonderful things with her life right now, but not a composer anymore. But so it's difficult. There's a lot of, you have to really be in the collaboration mode. You have to be ready to, state your case and then change your mind, because you're not alone. You're working with somebody else. Or maybe, and sometimes there's three different people. Sometimes the lyricist is separate from the composer and the book writer. Sometimes there's three of us. So try to make that throuple work. That's why a lot of them crash and burn, because sometimes people's aesthetic or what they think is right is, they're just too different. They all could be really great, but they don't mesh. So
Yeah.
I like doing it. I don't know if I'll do it again. I was trying to adapt one of my plays a couple of years ago, and the collaboration fell apart. I do like writing plays a lot. Again, it's an easy thing that I can do sitting in a chair, so that's nice at my age. So
Yeah, you got to do it from the comfort, of your home, and it's again, it's a lot easier if you have your own vision and you get to work directly. You got to work yourself of like, oh yeah, I can make changes and whatnot. But collaborating with someone else it's collaborating. It's a group project of like, all right, where can we compromise? And
yeah, but I will tell you, Leah was so smart about things that her suggestions always made the show better, and they were always wonderfully surprising. And I'm like, oh yeah, why did I miss that? So if you have a trust with somebody, and you have like you've identified where you're going and what you want to say, then you get this nice friction, these ideas blending well. It can be great. It can be great, and it can be awful. So it just depends.
That's fair. Yeah. Well, I think that's pretty much everything. I guess, is there anything, do you have, I guess, I don't know if you have any words of inspiration or thoughts or anything about, if somebody wants to try their hand at, being aspiring playwrights out there, or, and if you'd like to inform us of anything that you have coming up in your own life too, of any other projects you're working on.
Well, as far as aspiring playwrights, a lot of actors, a lot of writers were actors before. It's a very natural transition. Shakespeare, Moliere, they were actors first. So it's a natural. David Mamet, actor first, and then it transitions. To bring a little closer to now. So it's storytelling. It's all storytelling. I think if you're involved with storytelling as an actor, you get it kind of in your DNA, and you can get it out. But I've known a lot of people who are not even in the theater who could be quite good storytellers, quite good actors, or writers, if they just sat down and worked on it. There's rules, there's classes you can take just to get the bones of technique and how it works. And then you can just, once it's like being a jazz musician. Once you know how to play the piano, you can forget it and do something crazy great, so that's the best for me. The other part of your question was, what was?
Oh yeah, I was. Do you have any other projects or anything that you're?
I do. I have a new show premiering. I've worked with the theater in Wisconsin for several productions. I've done 3 shows with them, and I have another one coming up this coming spring with them. It's called A Rock Sails By, and it's based on something true that happened in 2017. We had an object from outside of our galaxy, not just our solar system, but our galaxy, came into this galaxy, took a beeline for Earth. It was unusually shaped. It sped up and slowed down. Course corrections. These things actually happened. This is true, and it didn't get pulled into the gravity of any planet, because it's always seemed to avoid those things. And then it came to the Earth, and it spun right around the Earth and left our galaxy. And it struck me as there's a story in here.
Yeah.
So I wrote a play, and the theater up there, it's called Peninsula Players, and they've been there for 87 years, and they're doing it this coming spring. So I'm looking forward to Kathy and I and my dog Hank. We're going to go out there for rehearsals, and I'm already in process of casting with it and stuff. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it.
That's awesome.
So come to Wisconsin, but more importantly, here at Lamb Theater. I hope this is a wonderful show for you. I hope you have a great Christmas. You have a tremendous cast, and I hope it makes people feel good about each other. Hope so.
I think so. We've got, we're gonna have 4 great weekends of runs of the show, and I always love that we do a show right around Thanksgiving time. It always allows, all families are together of like, oh hey, what do we want to do when we're all stuck inside, we're bored of each other, especially after the last couple of years of like, let's go see a show, let's go
Yeah,
enjoy
yeah.
a nice family musical and everything. So
Well, I hope so. I hope you enjoyed it. I think another night is a fun show. Uh, First it's fun. I think it's funny. It's fun. I think it's touching. And I talked to Russ, and he said it's coming out that way. It's coming out. People, we really like it. So I think it's a nice evening. And if you hate me, there are no refunds. So enjoy.
yeah, exactly. So, well, thank you so much, Sean. And yes, like you said, another night before Christmas. That it's going to open November 18th and it runs through December 11th at Lamb Theater. So please come check out the show and support playwright Sean Grennan, as well as our local Siouxland theater, Lamb Arts Regional Theater.
Absolutely. It's great.
All right.
Thank you.